Here we go. And live. I believe we are live. Okay. Yes, got it. There it is. Hello, hello, Soul Healing Revolution. Welcome for another Sunday Temple Talk. The Sunday sermon you always wished you had grown up with and had. I'm Cara Mendez. This is my husband, Edmundo. And today we are here with a very, very special guest, Amy Bolton. Amy and I have worked together for several years, many years now. And she recently attended our fall initiation retreat, coming all the way from BC, Canada. And I'm just going to do a quick little introduction. Amy Bolton is an empowerment coach, and she loves reflecting on motherhood and the journey she went through to reclaim her own sexual and personal power. Amy feels that it has been a wild, ongoing journey, learning to love all the parts of herself, and wants to help other women do the same. Yes, she does. Amy incorporates integrative nutrition, trauma-informed, and her doula background to make her a more compassionate practitioner, and allows her to include more creativity within her work. She is extremely passionate about helping women find a natural balance between getting their needs met, discovering their desires, and setting healthy boundaries and expectations within their communities. And I am just going to add, she is the epitome of a wild woman, y'all. She is a certified badass. This woman knows the bush and the forest and the freezing cold ins and out ways, like straight up, just like pioneer, so connected to the land, like so in touch with the indigenous cultures of her community. I'm just like adding more. I'm like, that did not do you justice. There's so much.
Well, absolutely. Like things that when you first got here, I was I was so fascinated by asking questions about where you came from, because it was just a different world from where we live, right? And I just wanted to know everything about it. I know I was like, so what about this, and what about that, and what about the cold, and what about what do you guys eat? How do you guys like move around? So it was quite a treat to for you to share about where you come from. So would you like to share with the people that are watching this video maybe a little bit about where you come from and where you live?
Yeah, I'd love to. Excuse me. I'm from northern British Columbia, Canada, and in the last 4 years, we've been all over British Columbia, from Vancouver Island to the Yukon border with our travel trailer. If you can see in the background, we are clearly in a campground because that's where we've been living for the last 4 years. And it's been fun to explore this ginormous province, let alone like this ginormous country that we live in, and the ginormous country that you guys live in. It's pretty remote. A lot of people in Canada aren't even aware of where I live. They think that Prince George is like northern British Columbia, but it's actually technically southern British Columbia. There's a very small population. It's a very remote area. And I loved how Cara was explaining where I came from to her kids. And she's like, it's what Amy calls the bush. And it's true. It's I heard my husband talking the other day about his work buddies. And yeah, I grew up in the bush. I grew up working on firewood. I grew up, learning about plants and harvesting plants and berry picking and learning more and more about medicine. And my mom didn't know a lot, but she knew she wanted us to have a different life than she grew up. She grew up in the city, and she always wanted to have lots of kids and kind of grow up on the farm that my dad grew up on a farm. And so we kind of lived way off in the middle of, I like to call it somewhere, because it's somewhere amazing, beautiful on the lake, and learned a lot. We had llamas, so we went backpacking out in the mountains with the llamas for years. We did a lot of those things. Camping as a kid, I grew up like just tent camping out on the land and just building fires and we always had fires. And at this time of year particularly, I really, really miss my fires. I really miss being out getting firewood and all that. But we're coming closer to getting our own place so that we can do that more, because that's what's really passionate for me. And I love being out in the forest. And I remember going when I was going to see you guys, and I was just like looking at Google Maps, like, is there trees? Is there forests? Like, where am I going?
Yeah, Amy messaged me and she was like, I'm so relieved to see that your house is surrounded by trees and forest. I snapped you.
Well, even like you sharing, I grew up in California right next to the ocean, and I remember going to the ocean like all the time and just standing there still, you know, with my thoughts and just being like feeling supported by the ocean, you know, and activated, you know, activate.
It was so activating.
Yeah, I literally just traveled back to the ocean. And I saw myself right in front of the ocean. It was so activating to be in front of it, you know, and just like being held by it, right? And when, as you were sharing about where you come from in nature, like it brought me back to that, you know, time, you know, and you share about like the birds and how much medicine there is in that, you know, and just being quiet in the mind and just observing the birds and the ocean and just being held by Mother Nature, you know. And that was something that that gift you brought to me while you were here, because, you know, life gets busy, you know, and you have the kids and the businesses and you know, I wanted to get back more to that. So
I wanted to add something here too, because I'm like, oh, me too. So while I didn't grow up in the bush or by an ocean, I did grow up on 3 acres of property similar to where I live now, that is decently remote, not remote, but like but our particular plot of land was secluded and just surrounded by trees and nature. And I grew up climbing trees and playing with frogs and in the dirt and building. My dad was a carpenter, and so I grew up like building tree houses and forts out of all of his like leftover wood and nails and supplies. And you know, a lot of my childhood was spent in nature on the earth in that way. I even played, you know, softball, which is an outdoor sport where you're deeply connected to the dirt and the grass and outside.
Yeah. Another thing that you really reflected also to me when you were here about the season of nature and the season of, you know, our lives, and how you have to honor that, right? And for me, I had so much resistance to the winters that it led me to not a good place, right? And you came here and you're like, yeah, you have to surrender to the seasons, you know, you have to live parallel to the seasons, or else you cause yourself suffering, harm, you know. And do you want to share a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's been a big life lesson for me. And and as a child, you know, that's what we did. That's what we naturally, I grew up where the tourist season was in the summer season, so that was the peak of the season when we were busy doing all the things, catering to everybody. And then, you know, the fall would come in and slowly we wouldn't have as many tourists and things would dwindle off. And Mom would be like, girls, we get to, like, you know, have our own space and do our own thing. And we'd hunker down inside and we'd, you know, just have fun and play. And I remember when we were homeschooling, it was so awesome. We had so much freedom to do all of the things with the season versus the school system, right? Where you're like back in action and doing all these things. As much as when I was in school, we did, you know, we had the long days, but we'd come home and it'd be dark and we just kind of hunker down and hibernate. Mom used to call it hibernating. And with the seasons more and more as I get older is like the plants. I've watched the plants as in their growth, right? And their growth in the spring, and they change throughout the summer. And then the winter, often we harvest like the roots and things, because that's what's more viable to be, you know, using and utilizing. And then the barks and the saps and different things like maple syrup's harvested in the very spring. early, late spring when things are starting to thaw and all that sort of stuff. We've started dabbling with that as well. In my sister's yard last year, which is fun. But it's a slow process, right? It's taken many, many years of just watching the seasons and like the ice on the lake. I was showing you guys videos of in May when the ice is melting and it's crashing up against the shore. Like that's like one of my most favorite childhood memories is we were like, yes, you know, breakups happening. And, you know, Dad, can we get out there in the canoes yet? Like, cause we get out there and we crash against the ice and like break the ice up. And it just was like such a magical sound of all the ice crystals. And, you know, and you knew that, you know, summer was coming and the warmth and the days were coming and we just get through that bearable through the heat, you know, just get through those couple weeks where it's unbearable. And I'm very thankful that I didn't come in August because I'm not very much of a heat girl. I love the winter, and you know, I'm definitely a Canadian girl. I'm definitely a winter girl. I used to always say that I loved the winter so much, and I think that's because I had to, because there's like 6 solid months of below zero. Like it's just like it's a really, really long winter, and very short windows of fall and spring. And, you know, it's not uncommon that we haven't had snow in the middle of August, right? And a big storm comes through. You know, I was talking to one of Sean's co-workers the other day, and he was talking about being hunting up in the mountains in, you know, the late fall, and it can be winter up there, right? And so you have to be prepared. And you know, I grew up as a Girl Guide, and you know, we always were learning survival skills, and you know, that's where I'm most comfortable, is out in the forest and working with the seasons, and you know, and being prepared. And in the winter, you know, we make sure we're prepared. We have, you know, we even down to winter tires, right? Like in this modern world of vehicles, it's like our summer tires, they have the little snowflake on them. They're like all season tires. Those are our summer tires. And then when we switch over, like someone was trying to help me switch my tires, and they're like, you're going to get a ticket if you don't switch your tires. I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. When I switch my winter tires, typically it's when there's ice on the road and we put studded tires on, right? So they have like little metal studs in them so that you have extra grip. Wow. And, you know, we switched it over the other day because we're a bit further south, but like, those are things that we do in the season, and, you know, gathering firewood and, you know, making sure our houses are prepared, you know, winterizing and sealing all the cracks. And, yeah. And my girls and I, like, naturally we're making crafts for winter. We're making Christmas crafts and Christmas bazaars, because normally our community would gather in the winter and we'd have, you know, the craft fairs. And it's been tricky when we've been on the road to kind of honor all those seasons all the time, because we've been moving a lot. And so we've been in this spot since last December, and it's feeling a bit more natural and like home, because I've been here for all the seasons, right? So yeah,
nature's such a teacher, you know. Like there was I don't know if you remember this, but it just came to my mind of like nature being such a teacher, and how we started connecting back to nature, you know, by going on hikes. And I remember, like, I think you and I got into an argument or a fight, and we were like disconnected, and for some reason the kids were, I know what happened. So the kids went to your mom's house, and we were supposed to go out to dinner and whatever, and then we ended up getting into an argument, and then we didn't go out to dinner. This is like years ago. And I remember, like, we were so disconnected, right? And I was just feeling like, you know, like I just feeling this energy, you know, and I was just like, how can like, I don't want to feel this way, right? I don't want to feel like disconnected, and we only have this time, and we don't get that much time alone, you know, because it was like back in the day when their kids were still very young. And this is one of the first times where we're, you know, just letting Kara's mom take care of the kids. And I was like, hey, you want to go on a hike? And she's like, I can feel her resistance, but she was like, fine. So we get in the car, we drive there, and it's just silence, right? And it's like, we're not talking to each other, we're not in a good place. We get out of on the trail, this trail that we came to be now, where you guys go hiking. And when you go up, you're part of the initiation retreat. And we started walking, and it started raining. It started raining on us, right? Remember that? Mm-hmm. And then it started getting muddy, right? So we're sliding and slipping, and then we were like, hey, let's go on this detour, and we go off the little detour now on the main trail, and then we end up getting a little lost, and then we started laughing, and we started, like, you know, it's raining, and we're getting wet, and that feels so good, and then now we're laughing together, we're trying to find our way back to the trail. Anyways, by the time we got back out of that trail,
the private ones,
the private ones, you know, in the group, and then not the group.
Yeah.
Now they're you know, they're not going anywhere. You know, there's just such a magic in those.
Yeah, we really do use our hikes are such deep healing experiences. Sometimes it will really bring up a lot of like shadowy things that's operating within us, you know, and so that there can be a little bit of a rupture that occurs. So it's not all, but then at the end, by the time we get to the end of the hike, we both always can see what was taking place and what happened. It's like literally the trails guide us on like a shamanic journey, right? So we're like, hey, we're gonna go hiking, but it's not just like oh, that's a pretty tree, or oh, look at the leaves. It's like we're about to go through some shit. Like we're about to have some veils removed. We're about to see some truth. Like we're about to have an experience.
Yeah, last year that we went on that hike where we climb, and then we got all the way to the bottom.
To the top.
Yeah, to the top. That was a beautiful moment for Cara. You know, she really showed her a lot.
It was a very we reached like this overlook, and I stood overlooking, and it was down this like deep gnarly ravine, you know, just full of brush. I mean, it was steep
and it was scary. It was like dark and dead wood, you know. You couldn't see really what was there, but it was deep.
And I looked over it, and I had this awareness of like, look at how far you've come. You came from down there. You climbed through this thick ass, wild, impossible jungle. Like you made the impossible climb, and you're here.
Yeah.
And you're not done, but it gets to be so much easier from here on out. And I just sobbed. Like there was just this huge awareness and witnessing and release. And I really got to see, you know, the metaphor that the earth became for me in that moment of how far I have come on my own personal healing journey.
Yeah, that was beautiful. You know, just being, like I said, being activated by nature and being held by nature. And then the funny thing that happened too. So we're like on top of this, like I don't know what you would call it, like a cliff, like a bluff, right? And I had a bottle of water, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go. And I turn around, and I don't know how the bottle just falls out of my backpack, and it just starts going down this freaking like ravine, and you can hear the bottom, and it's like clink clink, you know,
for like 5 minutes.
How deep it was. And I'm like, shit, I just bought that bottle. We paid like $20 for it, whatever. I told Cara, I'm gonna go back for it. I'm going down there for it. And Kara's like looks at me, you know, and I look at Cara, and I'm like, oh my God, I am willing to sacrifice my life, you know, to go pick up this bottle. And Kara's like, do you see what's happening here? I'm like, yes. Like I won't let any distractions or all small stuff bring me back to where I came from, because I'm already up here, you know. And that was like for, you know, like relationships that want to pull you back, or, you know, just stuff that isn't relevant.
Old little
beliefs,
flickering habits and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's profound.
Yeah. So we're always pulling the medicine from the nature, you know.
I love
and
that.
We saw that in you. Yeah, we saw that in you, right? Yes. Like we saw that in you. Like you have so much wisdom when it comes to the elements and the earth.
Yeah. I loved hearing your story, because I know that feeling, you know, when you're getting up to the top and you're just like, oh, it was so worth it. Like that just feeling when you get to the peak and you can see out, and you're just like, oh yes, yeah. And all the little metaphors. I love drawing metaphors from life and its experiences. Yeah, Mother Earth, just like the Primordial Mother, like teaches me so much every day. Like I try and take walks all the time and just listen to what the plants and what, like Eddie was saying, Edmundo was saying, with the birds and the, you know, it's it's beautiful, and the messages that come in, and yeah, all down to even like when I was preparing to come to the retreat, right? Like, and it's like I was talking to my husband, and last night I'm looking up all the 4 clairvoyance things, and like, okay, well, what, like, how does this work for me, right? And the clairaudience, right, where you hear the you know, and in our world sometimes you feel a little like when I'm telling these stories as I was traveling out, I'm like, I know this sounds a little weird or a little strange, but you know, I heard, like, I'm at the river and I hear like Missouri and Mississippi rivers, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, and I had no clue that where I was going was where those 2 rivers like merged, right? And it's like every day I'd like go down to the river and like listen as much as possible. I'd say at least, you know, 3 times a week for sure, or more. You know, some weeks 7 days a week I'm walking down to the river, depending on what the weather's like or what my schedule's like. And it's like listening to, and I've had to learn, because like to me, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a concrete jungle here, but like, it's really a tiny little town in the grand scheme of things, after flying over, you know, Vancouver and Minneapolis and, you know, St. Louis and all these things. We're just kind of a little speck on the map here. And I've had to realize that like plants grow everywhere I'm walking along the sidewalks, and like the mountains right there. And apparently there's an amethyst mine somewhere in the mountain, and the river's right there. And so I had to kind of like disconnect from the sound of the trains and the cars and stuff, and just like really focus on the nature that's around me. And it's been a big lesson being here, but walking down there, I get a lot from the river and the trees and the plants and the yarrow. Like this, I know people are always like, what's that on your dash? I'm like, well, yarrows actually was found in the Egyptian temples and stuff, and it's a medicine that grows everywhere. It's a very powerful medicine. It has lots of spiritual protection as well. So this yarrow, I just throw it on my dash, and I'm not sure what I'll do with it because it's crumbling, but I'll probably put it in some bath salts and maybe keep some of the stems here just as a protection in my car. And yeah, it's been a big, this has taught me a lot over the years, my yarrow. My dad actually used to call it stinkweed. So in the farms, they would they didn't want the cows to eat it because it caused them to taste differently, right? And he's like, oh, that's just stinkweed, we got to get rid of that. And it's funny because all these healing medicines that the Primordial Mother is like giving us, like, here, heal people, heal, like this is
might be us.
I love hearing all her you know, medicine.
Yes. Let's see.
I hope she's not talking still. Oh, is she back?
Oh, something's going on. Oh, no,
We
we
lost
lost
her.
her. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll just wait to see if she hops back on, but it should notify. She should just be able to pop right back on.
As she was talking, it just one another thing that happened too, that she came from such a far ways. Like, I mean, she what was it like her went to the 3 different.
She took 3 international airports, and I think it was 36 hours.
Something like that. She traveled like 30 hours to get here, and I'm like, man, that was quite the journey. And at one point, I'm like, why would she travel all the way over here for you know, what was it, you know? And I really want to ask her that, because she shared that with me, but there was a lot of magic in that. And then once we got to the temple session, it all makes sense why she embarked on that journey.
Yeah, and I also am really looking forward to her sharing her story, because she actually basically had like a premonition of the retreats before
They happened.
before we even had our retreats. Like we kind of knew we were going to do them in groups. We were already doing them privately. We knew eventually we were going to expand to group experiences, but we hadn't done that yet. And this was like a year ago. And she messages me one day and was like, oh my gosh, I just had this, you know, this, I don't know if it was like a vision that she had, or if she had just heard something again, like she was talking about the clairaudience gifts. And I listened to her message and I was like, whoa, full body chills. So I'm excited for her to come back and share that story. I think her phone might have died or something. She said she's coming back. Here she is. Unmute.
There we go. My phone overheated. I had my car on, but
yeah. We were just we were sharing about your journey to come here, you know, and for me it was like that was a long journey, you know, that you embarked on. And for me, there was a couple of times where I questioned, I'm like, why did she come all the way from borderline Alaska to Canada to come here to St. Louis, you know? And then in the temple session, it became very apparent why that was.
Yeah, it was quite a journey. Yeah, I was like questioning myself, but my husband's like, no, you have to do this. Like, you have to do this. So yeah, I knew I had to do it deep down, as hard as it was, because you know, it was just a deep knowing, since I had met Cara years ago, and you know, we had done some really profound like hypnotherapy type sessions or whatever you call them. I had no clue what I was doing at the time, years ago, and I was like, whoa, like this lady knows her stuff. Like, she's just like done the most profound healing experiences that I've ever had, and really, really opened up some of my gifts years ago to like things that I had never even known were within me. And so I had to go, and I came, and when we had the temple session, like, yeah, it was very apparent of exactly that we had, you know, previous lifetimes or whatever, we'd been in temples before. And it was like, it was so natural and so beautiful. Like, I remember coming into the temple and it was just like, wow, like this is such a special space. And I felt really safe and held, and just being on your guys' property, it's just such a special space. Like, just a really, really beautiful spot. Like, even to the morning when I took a walk around your neighborhood, there was like no cars, there was no people. Like, it was, everybody was just kind of hunkered down at home, and it was so quiet. And I was like, oh, like, how'd I find this little spot, right? But the temple, wow, what an experience. Like, I remember, like, I went second, and like the I didn't really know what I was getting into. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I've always wanted, right? So like the goddess, you call it like the goddess worship or goddess massage or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I've always wanted like something like this, where, you know, I'm being worshipped and appreciated for who I am. And I was like, oh, this is like so natural. And we go through it. And then all of a sudden there's like, everybody's around me, and Cara and I are there, and the whole dragon thing's going on, and you're like turning into a dragon. And it's like, I'm like back in my vision of when I've shared before in some of my groups, when I did my spirit animal journey. So I did that on my own when I started like doing earth magic type stuff. And I was like, so I did like my own shamanic journey with the drumming in the background, and that vision was recreated in the temple, which was the most wild thing ever. Like, I opened my eyes and I'm like, whoa. And after that, like, it's hard to even describe the whole experience, but you guys were all around me, and I remember being like, this was just so much easier than it was in my vision, because it was really challenging when I did that shamanic journey like years and years ago on my own. And I remember being so scared of like being there and being held held by this circle of humans that my lizard, which is a bearded dragon. In my vision, I like come in and the eagle comes and the eagle's there. And then this big dragon eye, which was Cara's eyes that I had seen, which is the wildest thing. And I was like, what is this eye? And then the lizard comes in and I ride the lizard along the lake and through the forest and into this spot where everybody's jumping and chanting and they're all around me, surrounding me. And I can't really see who these people are. And the lizard brings me into the center and it's just like, just stay there. And I'm like, and everybody's drumming and singing and healing. And I'm just like, oh, I want to go out. And I kept looking at him like, can I come out? Like, can I leave? Like, this is really uncomfortable. And this is really hard to be held by everybody. And he's like, no, just stay there and just feel what you need to feel. And I had to stay in that circle while all this was going on and process everything around being held. And I was just like, wow, like what a journey to meet my spirit animal essentially. And then in the temple, this is what ends up getting recreated, which I had no clue that that's what was going to happen. And you guys just naturally, as I'm sitting there and Cara was there and, you know, her eyes, like her and I were like, I don't know, dragons and from like dragon sisters from a past life. And it was like, you know, it's been so long, but it's just feels like it hasn't been so long and we're crying and just connecting and like, what a beautiful moment. And yeah, and then I look around and everybody's holding hands around me and I was like, whoa, this is way easier than it felt in my vision. And I was like, how is this even possible that this is being recreated? And it was such a remembrance of like, you know, I've been here before. I've done this work before. You know, we've been in these temples before, helping people and helping heal people and with that primal energy, right? That deeper primal energy of, you know, roaring. And I talk a lot about this openly within my own work and within my kids. Like if we're processing feelings, we'll roar at each other and roar. And I've really, really connected with that primal energy. And it was very, very evident and just natural, so natural in the temple. And as you guys all held me there. And then at the end, I was waiting and I was thinking, I'm like, Cara, I need to get direction from her. And then I was like, no, all I heard was, no, Amy, you need to take direction. You need to take charge and ask for what you need. And I was like, Edmundo, can you hold me? And I was like, yes, I need to be held. And so I sat there with him and I'm just like letting myself be held and receiving all this love and connection from everybody around me. And then I realized like on my chest is like my mom's heart ashes that I was wearing and this jade necklace that had been given to me by my dad through a lady who was working with me for all the work that I've done at the lodge and everything. And it was like at that moment, those necklaces really represented like my inner mother and father and my inner, you know, masculine, feminine. And I was like, oh, it just felt like everything was just whole and complete. And it just like really completed my time in that session that we were in. And after that, I was like, whoa, I've got my gifts and I'm like, I'm here to help. And like, how can I be of assistance? And like, and the next session, like I'm tapping Cara. I'm like, we've done this before. We've been here before. And I'm like right in there, like working with people and just like, and I'm like, what's it called? Hissing like a snake. I
love it. Yeah.
It was so beautiful and so natural and I just loved it all. And yeah, and I even told somebody the other day, I'm like, you know, if I'm losing track, I just have to remember that feeling of being held in the middle of all of you guys, like just holding me and just that feeling, because that just brings me back to center, back to who I am, back to my power, back to my gifts, right? So yeah.
Well, I mean, Cara and I planned all this, you know, we were like, she's gonna come here. I said, you're gonna come here, she's gonna remember, you're gonna turn into a dragon, then we're gonna create a district. Even if you planned it that way, it would never have happened. You know, it's just such a it's just such a I don't know, like just being guided by something more than we can understand, you know. Stuff is just that being downloaded and coming through and coming online, and the remembrance, and like you said, like we've done this before, you know, and feeling just such a natural space to be in, you know. That's what it feels like. It just feels so natural to our body, right? It's so aligned, you know, and it's something like you said, it's hard to put words into it, you know. Like it's one of the things that you almost have to experience it to understand it.
Yeah. Right. Like
Yes.
as you were talking, I'm feeling like all of this emotion in my body, and I'm like, whoo, like my fingers started tingling, my whole body started to get like vibrating. And I was like, just all this emotion and all of that remembrance from being in that temple session with you again started to come back. And your remembrance of you being a dragon priestess, dragon mother, holy shit. Even my body, I'm just like keep getting full body chills is so much emotion. I mean, literally you were talking and I was like, I think I might start crying. And for someone who's watching this and hasn't experienced these temple sessions with us, it's kind of like, okay, you guys sound a little fucking crazy. That's definitely some weird ass shit, but it is extremely an extreme mystical experience. It is unlike, it's literally our souls can reconnected again. And how it was like, I literally, yes, I morph into a dragon and I am mirroring to you your inner dragon. That allows you to remember your dragon, right? And then you come back, because that's my role. I mirror to you. I think one of the questions I asked you at one point is, do you see now? Do you see who you are? Right. And I was showing you who you are.
Yes.
I wasn't doing anything other than just sitting there and looking at you. And it was one of the deepest connections I think I've ever felt. I have experienced other versions of this with other sisters. Actually, it almost feels like you're a child of mine. It's like, it feels like a long lost child who you maybe didn't know if you would ever see again, and they come back home, and that is what it felt like. And there's so much, right? There's like joy and happiness and sadness and like there's a sense of elatement. I don't know if that's even a word. And there's like, but there's also like a grief, but there's like such a mixture of all of these feelings. And I think you asked if you could hug me, right? And in that moment, that was you as you embraced me, you were embracing yourself, and you're receiving your inner dragon mother.
Yeah.
And then we just pulled our eyes out and just like, we were just overwhelmed with emotion, because it was like, finally, you have returned. Finally, again, we meet again after thousands, who knows, hundreds of lifetimes, thousands of years, where our souls got to come back together again. It was like, we have done this before.
And it does sound like, it does sound crazy. It does sound crazy. You saying it, I'm thinking like, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But to witness it, like I was there and I got to witness it, and it was such a beautiful thing to witness. It truly was.
Yeah.
Like I had a moment of like, wow, what a beautiful, experience to witness.
Yeah. It was, it's so hard to put words to it. And it's just, you have to experience it for yourself. Cause every single one of us who went into the temple session, like, I can't believe we were in there for 8 hours, but afterwards I was just feeling so good. And it was just so natural. And like, every single one of us had such a different experience, based on what their needs were and what, and it's just wild. It's exactly what it needed to be. And it was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you know, like it creates such a blueprint for what life gets to be. And sometimes, like you said, you know, trying to get pulled back to, you know, old habits or old stories. But like you said, you always have this moment that you share with us, with, you know, with yourself, that you can always come back to and pull from that, right? And remind you of like who you truly are and why you're here and what your purpose is, you know. And yeah, you'll always have that.
Well, and can we also just remember, okay, I wanted you to tell this story. So I've already prefaced the audience for this when your phone dropped off. But do you remember a year ago when you messaged me and what you said? And again, I can't remember if you had
Yeah.
a vision or if it was just, again, that like clairaudience gift of yours that was coming online when you were out in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. So on my walks, just like when I was hearing the rivers names, is I was hearing that I need to bring women to Cara's retreats. And I was like, whoa, that was like so clear. Like, I need to bring women to Cara's retreats. And I was like, okay. So I like message you. I'm like, Cara, I'm hearing that I need to bring women to your retreats. And you're like, I don't have retreats. Like, okay, like, all right. And then we started talking about numbers, and I was like, I just keep like feeling or seeing or hearing the number 3 kept coming up at that point. 333. And I was just like, it's interesting. So I kept like asking, like, what does that mean? Like, am I supposed to bring 3 people? Like, how is this supposed to happen? And later, as I kept asking, it was like, I need to go first. And so I had to go first. And when we showed up the first night, when we were doing all the boundary setting and sitting by the fire, and I was like, or actually on the Zoom call when we were preparing to go, I was like, whoa, there was 3 facilitators and there was 3 attendees. And I was like, whoa, like, that's wild. That's so wild. And I didn't understand what that 3 meant. And it was like, you know, and that was before you guys were even planning retreats. And so back in August, the first retreat, I was like, I have to go. And I was like, and then I'm like, things didn't work out. And I really, really wanted to go. I'm thankful now I didn't go, because I needed to go during the fall season, right? That was a big part of my initiation, was healing through that season. We quite often talk, like we were talking at work and stuff too, about going into the winter season and how it can be like, you know, you can get seasonal affective disorder from the winter and the depression, anxiety, and all that sort of stuff. And that is all kind of like, it all happens based on the way our world's kind of set up. It's not really set up for us to just go with the flow and the natural cycles. And not to not to take away from people's actual lived experiences and stuff, but you know, I did struggle with that for many years. But when I could actually embrace the fall season, and like now I have a whole new connection and remembrance and for the fall season, because it was such a challenging time for me for many years. And like, even that very first fire that we had, where you're setting out the boundaries and everything, and I'm like, oh, my birth, like I was born December 22nd, and I know my mom, like being a diabetic, and she was in and out of the hospital, and there was a lot of challenges going on, you know, being the first pregnancy. And like the fall season was challenging for me from being in womb. Like it's been a long standing season that's been really, really challenging. And it was always okay when I was like connected with nature, but when I wasn't connected with nature, all of a sudden there was a huge disconnect, and it was really, really hard to move into those winter seasons. And it all came so clear to me during the retreat, right? It's just like, wow, that's why I'm here. I'm here to like heal that piece, that season, right? Because all the rest of the seasons, I'd always talk about how winter's my favorite season, and like, you know, summer was okay, we just get through it, whatever, and spring's great, but fall was always a really, really challenging time for me. And so that really came apparent during the retreat. And it's wild how that all aligned so perfectly to that day and that time. Yeah. And yeah, there's so many synchronicities, like even just it being on 11/11, right? And like the that sort of stuff too. Like, cause that's some of the past, yeah, I could go and go on and on. Karen, I've had so many sessions and things are just making sense. The whole web of life is just connecting, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you, Amy, like, what do you feel like is different for you now that you've went back home? Like, what was the biggest shift for you as a result of the retreat that you feel?
I think just being more solid and more confident in my ability to do things and hold myself, because like the whole journey started like a whole week before, you know. Well, even when I said yes, like I went and I was up on the hill and I was, you know, connecting with up on the mountain, I guess it's a mountain. Up on the side of the mountain, like when I said yes, and when I had first said yes to the retreat, and like that whole journey from the day that I said yes till the time that I was getting into the airport, I had to hold myself through all of that, and I had to ask for help. I had to talk to my husband about things, you know, and have different conversations, right? Like I remember, I don't even say the saying right anymore because I've left it in the dust years ago, is like, you know, it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. Yeah, I got it right. We used to operate on that programming many years, and I remember in the beginning I told Cara, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go off of that, and she's like, no, we need to change that, right? And so I was like, yeah, you're right. So I had a conversation, and like that was huge, right? And the conversations that my husband and I had before it all, and him being supportive and me asking for support and receiving that support from him, right? We use the analogy of like riverbed energy and or riverbed, which is the masculine energy, and the water energy, which is the feminine energy. And so I always, you know, you're my riverbed, like you're there to help hold all this together and help support me. And we had such beautiful conversations. And then we get in the, you know, the plane, and I'm on this trip, and I'm going to 3 different international airports all by myself. And I don't know why Minneapolis was so scary to me the get-go, because it's such a beautiful airport now. Like I look back, but I was terrified. I look on Google Earth and I'm like, there's so many people and I have to navigate these airports. And you hear all these stories of people like having to get on to connector flights. And I'm like, am I going to be able to do it on my own? Like, who am I going to encounter? Like, there's going to be all these scary people. And the journey back, like, wow, it was so easy that day. Like, I managed to get 3 window seats the whole way back, and like on a packed full airplane, I was the only one that had the seat vacant beside me. That was the only vacant seat on the entire plane, was right next to me. I'm at the window. I've got all my food. I'm on a 4-hour flight. I'm like, this is amazing. Watching cartoons, I'm like, yeah, I got myself. Yeah, I'm going to hold myself through all this. I'm going to nurture my inner child and just like have fun and eat snacks and like watch movies. And even like when you guys dropped me off and you had your friend Eric come and pick me up, I was like, yeah, I'm going to cancel my because my past things would have been like, oh, you already ordered a taxi, you have to honor that, right? But I'm like, no, I'm going to change my mind, and I'm going to go with what feels safest for me and honor that. And so that's kind of been a big theme for me, is like, I can hold myself and I can trust, you know. I had to trust through that whole journey that things were going to be okay. And I had to keep pushing those old stories back and like, no, I'm doing this. And I just feel so much more solid in all of that. Like, I can trust that it's all gonna happen the way it needs to happen, and that I can hold myself through it all. You know, I don't, as much as I have my husband that can be the riverbed, I also have my own riverbed that can hold me through all of that, you know. And when I need extra support, I can call in his riverbed support, or, you know, whatever. And yeah, it's been really beautiful, because even down to like yesterday, my kids or the day, maybe it was the day, no, it was yesterday, my one daughter was just having a big emotional release, right? And we've been working on emotional regulation as a family for years, because Sean and I didn't grow up in spaces where we were able to feel our emotions in a safe environment. So she's just pissed off, just angry and mad and screaming and yelling and like, and very dysregulated. So I was like, no, 15 minutes, just let her be upset, we'll get through this, right? And we're in a small space, so we've been learning that real close intimacy and like how to connect with each other. And so my husband, I was like, no, you go feel your feelings, like you're not gonna play off of this. And so then we're there, he goes for a drive, and after 15 minutes she's processed, and she's like, and I could, in the past I would have had to leave too, like I'm not even going to be here, and I'm holding her through all her big feelings, right? And I'm like, I see you, you're so frustrated, you're so upset. And I'm just getting emotional even thinking of it, because I couldn't have done this like even before the retreat. Like it's just it's very evident that I can hold that. And Sean, before he left, he was like, you guys need to go for a walk, like you need to get out of the trailer, and there was no way in that moment, in that rage, she was doing that. And so as soon as her emotions had passed, which just took some time for me to sit there with her, she was like, yeah, I need to eat some food. And then I was like, do you guys want to go for a walk? Yeah, I want to go for a walk. And so we went for a walk. And we walked, and they were talking, and they were processing all these things and talking about all this stuff. And it was so beautiful. And like afterwards, she came and she said sorry to me. She said sorry to her dad. And when we get back in the room, in the trailer, in our home, and she's like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I was just really hungry and just really upset, and like I just needed to get outside. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, we have our feelings, and we just got to remember that we don't hurt or harm other people when we're feeling those feelings, but we get to feel them. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I think there might be one other person in here that you need to say sorry to. And she's like, oh no, Mom, I already said sorry to Gia on our walk. I already told my sister I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, and she's like, I already did all that. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, awesome. And like, and we've been working on this for years, but for me to be able to sit there through the whole emotion, like I've been working on this for a while, and and I think even now, like there's people coming to me all the time, and they're like, Amy, this is going on, and they don't have a lot of humans in their life that can hold some of the shit that people are coming to me with, right? And I'm like, yeah, I see you there. I see you, and I get that, like some of their deepest, darkest stuff that they've went through in their lives. And I'm like, yeah, I got you. I got this. I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of those depths. And one of the things you said in the temple too, which ties into all of this, is, you've lived your whole life for this. Like your whole life has been for this, which is so true. And that's so evident now. Is, I don't openly talk about a lot of the past painful experiences in my life, but there's been so many things that I've endured. And even just me during our hike, sitting there witnessing other women share their painful experiences, I was able to draw those connections to my life and be like, oh yes, those are my gifts, right? And then those are my gifts. And like I could draw all those experiences from all those other women, just as through the Liberated Woman program that we did, right? It's like, you can draw all those experiences from everybody else. And that's the beauty of being in a circle and working with other humans, is you can really know that. So it's I guess that's the biggest thing, is being able to hold myself and through all of it, through the darkness and through the depths of everything, and being present for humans, because there isn't much that I haven't seen in this lifetime and past lifetimes. So yeah.
I think like that's one of been our like even like in the Srelach, in the Srelach and the temple, or the whole experience, but being getting very comfortable with our own emotions, and and allowing others to see us in those emotions. And once you can do that for yourself, you can do this for others, right? Because you have met yourself there. And that the ugly, the shadow, the dark, whatever you want to call it, you meet yourself there, and you love it, and you accept it, and then you can do this for everybody else. And then not only can you do it for everybody else, but they feel that you can, right? This is like, this person has gone deep. This person can hold me. This person won't judge me because they've done that for themselves. And this is why people are coming to you, and this is why you can be there for your daughter now, because you're comfortable with your own emotions.
And as you were talking and sharing that, Amy, I was like, yep, this is the gift of the dragon. Like this is our gift, right? Like that we do know how to go deep, right? Because the dragon is the earth mother, right? She's the underworld. She knows all of the pain and all of the sadness and all of the shadow and all of the ugly. And she knows how to bring it unconditional love, and she knows how to extract its beauty. And that is the gift of alchemy. That's what we do. And this is why I've said this also for years. I know everyone's deepest, darkest secrets. I know the ugliest shit about everyone that I work with. People just bring me it, right? And they know, because they know I will still love them. And that is the greatest gift that we could ever give anyone.
Medicine, yeah.
Yes, the most powerful medicine.
This is what creates unity, not separation. You know, this is where you humanize people and not, you know, hide and be kind of tight. You know, this is where you didn't just hold your daughter, but you held another human. You know, you held this being, you know, with compassion, understanding, and not made her wrong for her experience. You know, you could have said, "Oh, well, she's just a bratty little girl." You know, that's the humanity to take away her humanity. You know, we do this in society. This is one of our biggest, like, what do you call it? Vision. Biggest missions. Yeah, missions. That we start humanizing each other. You know, that it's not them against us. You know, or that, oh, they're just this and that. You know, there's a human behind that emotion. There's a human that's in pain. There's a human that needs to be held. There's a new human that's looking at life through certain traumas and through certain stories and through certain beliefs, right? And we can help them overcome that. But first, we have to see that there's a human behind that.
Yes.
Well, and so I just want to map on this parallel that I'm witnessing is, as you were able to hold your daughter through her big emotions, is the same, and she was able to receive that holding to whatever level she was able to receive, that is the same level of holding that you were able to receive in the temple from all of us, and even from Edmundo specifically, right? And that journey started a long time ago, right? Like you said, back in my previous program, the Liberated Woman, that we did for what almost 3 years we ran that, I think. And you know, when you started doing that work then initially, and then you went through, I think, a big trauma training, and that really shifted some things for you. And then now we just brought it all fully into your body. You know, I felt like my experience of your temple session was, I felt so much trauma leaving your right leg, like your right leg specifically. That's what I experienced.
Yeah.
And your leg was just releasing, right? Like that somatic tremble, right? Just the release, the shake, just coming out.
Yeah.
And I felt my dragon kind of coming in as I was just like sending that. Maybe it was safety. Honestly, it wasn't like a conscious thought. It was just a transmission that was going into your body, just sending that into you. Love, right? Safety, love.
Yeah.
And I just felt that releasing. And then finally it felt like you had, I don't know, in my mind, how it kind of feels or looks is like your inner masculine, that protector, came into love and released the fear, right? So it was this like shift, right? Released of all of that trauma. And then I was like, okay, it's time for you to sit up now and to look at and to face me, like me. Oh, I hope her phone isn't dying again. Oh, there you are. And so that was my experience of that. And then we had that beautiful exchange that we talked about earlier, and that was it was really profound.
Yeah, that was wild. And I knew there was stuff still stuck in there because like it was when I did my sound healing practitioner certification that day, when we had broke into working on each other, like there was a lot there that my instructor was like, whoo, there's a lot of like masculine stuff stuck in here. And we didn't have enough time to get into it. And I'm so thankful that I was able to release all that in the temple because it was a lot. And that was, you know, when Dela's name came up and stuff too, and there was some similar traumas, masculine wounding that we had both had, and that was such a beautiful experience. Like looking back on it all, it was hard to put words to at the time because we didn't really know what was going on, but we were just, you know, intuitively using our gifts and going through and processing what needed to happen. And yeah, there was a lot of masculine, and it was alchemized into safety. And like, and that's huge because me leaving here, going there, there was still that wounding, and it's very, very evident in just the flights, right? And just the flights there versus the flights back that had been healed. And yeah, I didn't necessarily want, any healers in town. I hadn't had such a close relationship with any of them to work on some of that stuff. Right. And you even talking about the trust and stuff, like, you know, you're one of the very first people that I was able to just show up and feel my emotions and cry. And, you know, sometimes I just show up and just like, I just have to cry. Like, this is a safe space to just cry and feel my feelings. Right. So, that was a huge release of like, probably lifetimes of stuff that was just stuck, you know, masculine stuff that was stuck in my right side. And yeah, it was a huge release. Yeah.
You mentioned about, you know, how there was you know, there was 3 women in this retreat, and in the previous there was 4, and they all had different things they need to work through, right? But Cara and I were able to be there for all of them, you know, in a very powerful way, right? To just understand what they were going through, right? Because your experience from the other one was different, but we were still able to show up for them, right? And this is something, a conversation that Cara and I've had, is because you guys represent all parts of us, right? All of them, right? And we have met ourselves there with those parts. We've learned to love all our parts, just like you were holding your daughter yesterday. It's because you were holding your inner girl, your own inner child, and you learned how to hold her now. So of course you can hold your daughter now, right?
Yeah.
And that is the power of the work that we do, right? So I can show up to women, you know, there have this you know, this little girl that wants to be held, because I've held my own little boy, you know. There's women that come here with their darkness or whatever, you know. I can hold them because I've held my own darkness and loved it, right? So of course it makes sense that now you're holding your daughter with this compassion and this understanding and non-judgment, because this is what you're doing for yourself now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power of the priestess, right? And the return to inner divine union and wholeness is, you know, and there's always more, there's always a greater depth to meet ourselves, right? Within each of the parts. Maybe we've come to love them at this, you know, to a certain point, and then there's more and there's more. But you know, this is the path that we walk, right? And this is why we're able to bring love, you know, and bring that unconditional love of of Mother Earth, right? Because she is our creator. She's our creatrix, right? It's not, there's not a man in the sky that births us, because the masculine doesn't birth beings. The feminine does. Now, the masculine plays its role, obviously a very important role. And this is a huge piece, I think, that we have been disconnected from, right? And this is a huge aspect, I feel, of your gifts and your medicine that you bring also, is returning people back, returning the women that you work with back to the goddess, right? The goddess being the primordial mother, being Gaia, being, she has 1,000 names, right?
The
Yeah.
wild one.
Yeah.
The wild woman. And yeah, and Amy, like you are the epitome of a wild woman, the wild woman, right? Like that archetype is so deeply fitting for you. And I don't mean like in an unruly teenager wild woman or early 20s wild woman kind of way. It's like you came in the fall. That
Yeah.
is the archetypal season of the wild woman, right?
Yeah.
It's the woman who she is in a phase of her life where she is like, I will be liberated and I will be free, and you will not tell me who I am. And I will live with wild abandon in life, and I will not be afraid.
And I will
Mm-hmm.
apologize.
I will not apologize for who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And I will teach you how to do the same, right? Because our liberation, our liberation automatically liberates others just in our presence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was, and you have so many gifts because you do liberate people around their fear of the earth, the actual elements and seasons of the earth and the gifts that the earth has. Like you were telling me some stories and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that. Like, you know, and then you were like, but I was scared to go to the airport and walk across the street from my hotel. And I was like, what? Like, you're a badass. What are you talking about? Like, you'll fucking wrestle a grizzly bear, but you're afraid to go across the street? Like, what? I was like, I don't understand. I can't reconcile this in my brain. And of course I understand, right? I understand like this comes from some, you know, that it came from that prior wounding, but you know, this now it's like you got to see who you are and you get to bring this in such a more like, yeah, like your whole presence for me feels like you're so rooted and so grounded and so solid. And
I watched your video that you made, I think, like, I don't know,
yeah.
a few days after the retreat. And I was like, who is this person?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there was such a groundedness, but there was so much power there.
Power.
The way you were expressing yourself, it was just so rooted and so grounded, but so powerful.
Powerful.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was part of that. We were part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very rewarding.
It's like that proud mother, father.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I was even telling Sean the other day, or well, yeah, just yesterday when we were driving, I was like, you know, just my presence is a big gift. Just as you were saying, Cara, is like, I'm like, I can feel that and I can tell that. And like time is a finite resource. And it's like, you know, it's when people are around me, like that's a huge gift. And, you know, and it's like, they can feel that, right? They can feel that energy. And like, you know, and science is slowly catching up to a lot of this very ancient stuff. Is like, there's an energy field around all of us, right? And like, as more and more people are learning about that, and it's like when you're, you know, you're in that right energy and that divine masculine feminine union where you're so grounded and so connected, it's like, you know, it ripples out and people feel that stuff. And it's, you know, in a lot of good ways. And then it also, you know, in other ways, people start to see that mirror and that wounding and that stuff within themselves, which also somewhat pushes people away until they're ready for those gifts to heal and to learn. And, you know, and it's been a wild ride in the last couple of weeks since I've been home, just watching the other people respond. Because I remember when Cara and I did a one-on-one session years ago, and I had just started feeling my energy and the energetics, and like I had done a boundary workshop which was all about energetics, and I was like, whoa, this is wild, like this is really wild stuff. And then at some point I'd gotten scared and I was like, oh no, like nobody gets to feel that, nobody gets to feel my power, right? And now I'm just like, yeah, they do. And that's because, like, you know, we went through so much, and it's just now I can't unsee it. I'm like, now I can't not see my gifts and see what I'm here and my purpose and all the connections. And the reasons that this happened and that happened. And it's just, my whole life makes so much sense now. It's
Well, what you mentioned purpose, what do you feel like has been shown to you in regards to your purpose?
Well, I've always known that it's here for humanity, right? So it's like, you know, as much as I've been drawn to working with women, because that felt safer, I keep getting this vision of like all humans are at the table, like all men, women, children. And for years I've known that it's like more of like families. And even my last retreat that I hosted, it was all women, but it was all family together, right? And so there's so much healing that happens in amongst all that. And as I said at our first Zoom meeting before the retreat was, I feel like kids, there could be a lot of healing happen if kids are welcome in more spaces in our world, right? When we have this disconnect, like this is an adult only space, this is a, you know, and I get it to a degree. There's certain times when, you know, kids can't be present for whatever reason, but I feel like we've excluded kids in too many spaces, and people need more of that innocence, that original innocence presence, so that they can learn and they can heal their own original innocence, you know, if that makes any sense. But it's like this has all kind of like makes so much sense. And I'm like, I've known that I'm here to bring people together and doing retreats. Like when I started doing my retreats, that was like the first time I was like really, really in my zone. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be helping facilitate these things and bringing women together. And yeah, and like working on the land and just connecting people. And even like when I did my sound healing, like when I didn't even know, I thought we were going to be going and doing all these like crystal sound bowls and learn that. I didn't know that she was going to be teaching us about spirit drums and teaching us how to hold a drumming circle, teaching us how to, you know, to use tuning forks that I now have, all these things. And that same drumming circle was like very similar to like what we experienced in the temple is what I experienced in my vision. And like that circle piece, right? Like it's just bringing everybody to the table to heal together. And I've been knowing that I'm on a path to get my own retreat space, and I've utilized my family home, which is my dad's retreat space in the past. And so we're working on it. My husband and I are working on, you know, getting our own space and doing our own, you know, wild woman hikes or wild people hikes, you know, like with all humans involved, and bringing more people together. And just yeah, like I've made so many connections across the whole entire planet over the last 5 years of me holding these online retreats. And there's certain people I just intuitively, like the intuitive piece, like, because I call myself intuitive wild woman. And years ago when that dropped in, it's been like my goal is to really, really learn and hone in on my intuition. And I know there's certain women in the world that eventually are going to come in, and certain healers that are going to be a part of what I'm here to do. And so, yeah, my purpose is helping humanity in my own little way, in my own little pocket of the world, just as you guys are doing. And there was so much, because I kept asking, because I knew, like, my husband and I have been together we just celebrated our 19th year anniversary since we've been dating in October. And I've known there's something there between the two of us. And it's so fascinating because you guys have been together for a very similar amount of time and through a very similar journey. And I didn't really understand exactly what we're here to do. But whenever Edmundo was talking, there's so many times when I'm like, the words coming out of your mouth were the exact words that my husband has shared with me over the years. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, and you guys were able to represent that for us. And I'm excited to see kind of what his path is and what my path is. And when you guys talked at one of your temple talks about the center part where you guys both your purposes merge,
Overlaps.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to see where that is, because I know that part of us, like, working together, we've always worked really well together, especially on the land, you know, like making fires, cleaning up the brush, and creating things and building things. And he brought up the idea of tree houses, and I've kind of just grasped onto that ever since. And there's going to be tree houses. That's part of our future together and our healing path together. And yeah, I'm not sure what else, but that, I think that kind of answers.
Yeah.
I love it.
One of my favorite things you said after you got back to Canada is that Sean, your husband, said, "Hey, when are you going back to St. Louis?"
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, right? Because he noticed a difference in you. He's like, whatever you went and did over there, like, you can go back anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. Before when I had the conversation, I was like, he was like, yeah, you go. And then we're going to go to Mexico after that. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And then when I was over there, I was like, I don't think we were talking about real Mexico. I think we were coming to Cara and Eddie's place. I think, or Edmundo, sorry. But yeah, I was like, we're going to be coming back here, the two of us. Like, this is, I don't know about actual Mexico, but maybe that's part of it as well. But I feel like that we're both going to be back there.
Yeah, we would love that.
Yeah.
I think that would be it'd be really cool, to meet Sean, and your two girls. That'd be quite a treat.
Yeah. Amazing.
What would you tell anybody that's watching this and they're considering they're thinking about considering coming to the next retreat? What would you tell them?
If you're considering, like, listen to your intuition and like and get on that, because like the healing happens as soon as, the initiation happens as soon as you say yes, and as soon as you step into it. And and as scary as it is, and whatever fears you're facing, they'll be revealed to you, and Cara will hold you through it. She's helped me through a lot, and even after I said yes, there was a lot that came up, and lots of emotions and feelings and things, and she can hold you through it. And if there's something that's just kind of inkling and telling you want to go, there's a reason. There's something for you to learn when you're on this retreat, whether it's through the hike, whether it's through the the temple session, through the Temescal, I just slowly, it's taken me so much time to even share all my stories with Sean. I'm like, did I even tell you about the Temescal yet? Did I even tell you about this? Because there's so much depth to every single experience, and the 3 experience too, right? The number 3 comes up there too, which is so fascinating. And there's something there for you. So if you're considering it, there's a reason. There's a reason you're considering it. And trust your intuition and trust yourself, and figure out a way. Because I remember the first time I was like, Cara, like, can we get like an open-ended PayPal thing so I can just start throwing money on it so that eventually I can afford it, right? And the biggest thing was, I've gone through a lot of financial healing in my journey, and yeah, finances have never been as great as they are. And I'm just like, originally I wouldn't have said yes with thinking, oh my gosh, it's a big investment, right? But I found a way, and I made it work, and yeah, we're doing great, and we're I've really let go of that scarcity mindset. And it's you can let go of that too, just by saying yes. Open the conversation, like they'll accommodate you, whether it's whether you have to take some time to do it. But if you feel that this is something you want to do, listen to your intuition, because you guys are such beautiful humans, and I'm so thankful, and like, you're so inviting, and just welcoming us all into your home and your space, and just, it's profound. Like, it's you can't even explain it, you have to experience it. So
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can go to my main page, Amy Bolton. I share a lot there. And then I also have a group called the Intuitive Wild Woman. My website, where on Facebook. My website is amybolton.ca. So it's just amybolton.ca. And then you can get everything from there as well. And I am on Instagram. It's just kind of like an automatic thing from Facebook. And yeah, I am on TikTok as the Intuitive Wild Woman as well. However, I haven't really shared anything. My daughter thinks it's so crazy because she's like, how do you have like 200 followers and you've never shared anything? I'm like, I'm still learning TikTok. I'm just kind of there to check things out. So yeah, so if you want to follow me on TikTok, if that's something your thing, you can totally do that as well. I do have a YouTube channel that I try to update every so often with all my Facebook lives. So anywhere you're there. My main thing is Facebook, Amy Bolton, and from there you should be able to find things. My website will kind of ripple you out to things. Yeah, and if you want an experience of Canada, you know, like I do after custom retreats, you know, if you want to do a family thing or a group thing or whatever, let me know. It's my main page profile image. If you want to apply for that, I have a little Google Doc that you can fill out, and like I love doing that. I love getting out on the land and love offering my gifts, and Cara and Edmundo have been like so beautiful and like showing me that this is what I do, and this is, you know, really claiming that and honoring that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love doing what I do. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. If there was anyone that I would trust to take me out into the wilderness in Canada, it would be you.
Well, not that, but it's so beautiful where you live. I mean, like the pictures you shared and the videos, I mean, it's just majestical, you know, like everything, the mountains and the trees and the birds and the eyes and the land, just like everything, you know, it's just so beautiful there.
Yeah. Yeah. If you really want to get in touch with your inner wild woman, Amy is the one you want to go to. Yeah. I mean, wow. Like I felt almost underqualified to be running a wild woman hike in comparison to Amy's like knowledge and wisdom of the elements and the earth. And she actually even was like offering, because we have this new underground temple that we're running with a wood furnace, and we don't have a lot of practice with that, but Amy was like, here's what you have to do. You need to get a propane torch. You need to turn the damper like this and like that. And if you do it like this, it's going to burn the wood like that. If you do it like, and she just like knew everything. And she was really able to offer mostly Edmundo, because he handles the fire. But I was just like so taken aback and like in awe of that. And I was like, ooh, like I wanted you to teach me like how to live off the land in the way that you know, and it's something that I feel like I've always desired. So that's why we bought this place where we live now. And slowly but surely we've tried some things, and some of the things haven't worked, you know, like, and maybe it was just not the timing or what have you. But yeah, I truly like have such a deep appreciation for the wisdom and the knowledge and the gifts that you have.
Absolutely. So much
Thank
wisdom.
you. I remember when we were going on the Wild Woman hike, and you're just like, so Amy, this might be a meander through the woods for you, but I was like, it's all whatever, right? I would just like go and do it. And it was beautiful because it was more about the conversation and the connection that we had while being held by the Primordial Mother, right? And I tell people that it doesn't matter how deep you go into the woods or where you go and what location you're in, as long as you're, you know, grounding and connecting to that, right? And I've had to learn that being here right in the middle of a town, is, you know, the plants that grow along the sidewalks, and the, you know, there's nature everywhere, and we get to connect to it wherever we are, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking like you are such a beautiful embodiment of the feminine. And yet you have this, this really profound power, right? And the big theme thread of our retreat that weekend was soft power. And you really are such a representation of that, like that is your gift, is that soft power. Right? Like you don't come in with a very like masculine, hard, like, we're gonna chop some wood, we're gonna fuck some shit up. Like that's not your energy, right? But there is still this like energy of like, I got you, and I
Confidence.
know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's like this like confidence that makes you feel at ease, you know, that makes you
Yes.
feel like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Calm.
Yeah. There's not a lot of people that Eddie trusts to take advice and wisdom from in certain things. And he was so like, ooh, tell me more. What else do you know? What else do you
I
got
know,
for
I
me?
was
What
like,
else can I like?
well,
What else can you teach me?
the whole weekend I was like, things were just coming in. So what about this? So what about that? You know, and it was just fascinating to hear all your stories and how you lived in the land and your knowledge and, you know, your wisdom that, you know, you grew up with.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yes.
So
Thank you for blessing us all with your medicine and your magic.
Yeah, thank you. Aw, such an honor. I love sharing stories, and yeah, story is another piece of that puzzle that draws a lot of pieces of my life together. Yeah.
Yeah, it was such an honor as well for us.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little about the retreat?
Yeah. So anyone who, like Amy said, I was just like, yep, that. If you feeling the call, if this retreat is like nudging at you, and maybe you don't even have to know fully why, and that's okay. Just listen, just answer that call, just reach out. We'll hop on a connection call. We'll see, hey, is it the right time for you? Is this the right experience for you? We'll have that conversation. And yeah, if we actually have an early bird pricing going on right now through the end of November, so you can save like $555. We're also offering a 6-month payment plan right now, so you can jump in for as low as, I think it's $278 a month. And we are also adding another day to the retreat. So because it is quite an intense experience, and those, like, it's about two, we call it a 3-day, but it's about 2.5 days total, and they're intense. So we're adding another day. We're incorporating some restorative yin yoga to bring in some gentleness and bring in some restoration. And we're also adding a fun experience. We're bringing in like your ancient healer, like photo shoot. So whatever you're embodying after your 3 initiations, we're hiring a professional photographer. It's going to be done outdoors. There can be a boudoir component for you if you'd like. It's totally optional and up to you, however fully expressed you want to be. And then you get to have those photos and use them for your future marketing, or just to keep for yourself, whatever you'd like to do with those. And then we'll have like a group component. And so we'll do an initiation ceremony after temple session, similar to what we did. And there's handmade crowns involved, and there's red thread bracelets, and there's a sacred vow that we all make. And then at the closing ceremony, we're offering that as like an extended period to really recap all of the teachings and the lessons and the experiences from the entire weekend, as like that final integration, wrap it all up with a pretty bow, and then to say our farewell and for now, right, for that weekend, and to close it out. Just creating a little bit more spaciousness for us all. And you're getting it for the same price as what Amy paid last time. So that's what we have on offer. Oh, and then for our Black Friday bonus offer, throwing in a full free year of the Erotic Mother, which is an $1,100 value. So, and that is, again, where you get to just deepen into, have ongoing support before the retreat, after the retreat, because the next retreat is in May. It's May 16th through the 19th here in Pacific, Missouri, where we live, which is just in the metro area of St. Louis, Missouri. And let's see, yeah, and so you'll get you'll get that added level of support to journey through the 3 archetypes of the Dark Mother, the Holy Whore, and the Master Creatrix. So yeah. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we would love to have you. Love, 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 love. This is a return to your dragon lineage, right? This is ancestral, inner child, trauma healing. This is karmic healing. There is so much. We go so deep. Whatever, there's sexual healing, mother, father, wound healing, masculine, feminine healing. You really get to experience a level of your own inner divine union through this initiatory process.
Oh yeah, and then we're gonna open it to 6 spots.
6.
spots.
We have 6 this time. Yes, we're going to be bringing on a little bit more support staff in the process, so we got you. But yeah, we're really excited to just keep expanding this experience. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Yes, thank you guys. I'm excited for everybody. Yeah. Yay. I love it.
Yes, love it too. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story, taking this time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.